Good evening. Thank you for joining us here for KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where we give you more news in less time. I'm Whitney Ward. Mark is off tonight. Let's get started. Well, a major step forward on a new Spokane homeless shelter that will house up to 250 men and women 24 hours a day. Tonight, Spokane City Council members approved a lease agreement to rent a building on East Trent. KREM 2's Kyle Simchuk is looking through the details and has more now on why council members say this will help but won't solve the homeless crisis.
It's taken months of negotiations to lock down this deal. The city is signing a 5-year contract with the building's owner and will pay more than $1.8 million. That price tag does not include all the wraparound services that will be located on site. This warehouse on East Trent could open as soon as August 1st, providing hundreds of low-barrier beds and 24/7 services to men and women currently sleeping on sidewalks and in tents.
The direction is providing shelter and services to those in need. That's the direction of this administration. That's the direction of this council.
In a 6-1 vote, council members approved a lease agreement with Lawrence B. Stone Properties. Councilwoman Karen Stratton cast the lone no vote.
It's a big decision. It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of unanswered questions. And for those reasons, I can't vote for it.
Stratton doesn't believe the Trent shelter is the right path forward. She's upset that the council still doesn't know the total cost of the wraparound services that'll be offered on site. City Administrator Johnny Perkins says council members will be briefed on that during a July 11th meeting.
It's a step in the right direction because, as you've heard tonight, compare it to what people have. The streets, tents.
Councilwoman Betsy Wilkerson wants the city to explore more options like pallet shelters and designated parking for cars and RVs.
We're trying to put everybody and make them fit in this one space. It will not work. So, yes, we do need a vision. We need choices.
Meanwhile, the homeless camp near I-90 and Freya continues to grow. According to Jules Helping Hands, the vacant lot owned by the Department of Transportation is now home to more than 500 homeless men and women.
In the area around the site at WashDOT, we have seen a significant increase in crime over the last months.
The city has selected the Guardians Foundation to operate the shelter. As part of the agreement, the city also has the option to buy the Trent building within a period of time. Council President Brian Begg says he plans to start working on a proposal to do that very soon. In the newsroom, Kyle Simchuk, KREM 2 News.
All right, thank you very much, Kyle. And we want to check in on our other top story of the hour, which of course is just how hot it was today. Actually, it's still a pretty warm evening out there as well. Our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legou, is tracking what we have in store because it sounds like it's not going to be quite as hot as we move through the week.
That is the saving grace as we head through the next couple of days. And we will continue to see temperatures kind of drop for the next 2. So today, kind of the worst of it. You've now made it through it. Now is the time where you can start to open up some of those windows. I know for one at my house, my temperature inside was up at about 80 degrees a little bit earlier today. So yeah, I was finding those cool spots. Now we're down to 76. So for me, let's open the windows, let the fan do its job because we're starting to see those temps cool. Still in the 80s in both Wenatchee and Moses Lake, 74 in Coeur d'Alene, dipping into the 60s up in Sandpoint. We're starting to see that cool air move in. Heat advisory likely stays in place until 11 p.m., but then quickly expires thereafter. Over the next 12 hours, watch temps drop. Will fall down into the 60s early tomorrow morning. Not that bad. Really try to pull in that cool air tomorrow afternoon. We quickly find ourselves back in the 80s, but that's still about 10 degrees cooler than today.
All right, Jeremy, thank you. We are following a developing story now out of San Antonio, Texas. 46 people were found dead inside a semi-truck just outside of San Antonio.
There are, that we know of, 46 individuals who are no longer with us, who had families, who were likely trying to find a better life.
Officials say a worker nearby heard cries for help and saw the semi with the back door partially open. When they opened it up, there were dozens of dead bodies inside. All of them had died of heat-related injuries. 16 others were still alive and rushed to the hospital, including 12 adults and 4 children. 3 people are now in custody, although it's unknown if they're actually connected to all of this. This is still a developing story, so we'll bring you more information as it comes in. Also new tonight, 3 people are dead and 50 others are injured after an Amtrak train derailed in northeast Missouri, the second fatal train crash by Amtrak in just 24 hours.
The train had approximately 8 cars, including a baggage car. 7 cars have derailed. There are multiple injuries, and we can confirm there are 3 fatalities.
The derailment happened after the train hit a dump truck, which was at a public crossing about an hour outside of Kansas City. That train was going from LA to Chicago with 243 passengers on board. 2 people who died were train passengers. The 3rd victim was the truck driver. Authorities say it was an uncontrolled train crossing, so there were no crossing barriers or lights to signal that oncoming train. And just yesterday, another Amtrak train crashed into a car in Northern California. That too was at an uncontrolled intersection. 3 people were killed in that collision and 2 more injured, including a child. Over the weekend, Spokane police responded to shots fired near East Garland and East Empire. Another call was made just 5 minutes later. Police say the suspects left the scene in a car, and while they were leaving, they shot at a responding officer's car and struck that officer. One officer also reported the suspect's car sped up to chase her patrol car and tried to pull up alongside it. Coming up here in about 10 minutes, we'll share more about what we know about those suspects and what they're being charged with. But now to Night Beat with a quick look at the day's top stories. Neighbors in North Spokane reacting to that shooting.
At some point you become numb to it. I think everybody does until it hits your neighborhood and then it hits home, and then you go back to reality and start thinking, how do I protect myself, my neighbors, and be more aware of your surroundings.
So take a look. This is security footage from that shooting provided to KREM 2 by one of those neighbors. Homeowners say they have seen quite a bit of car traffic and minor drug activity in that area. But when it came to yesterday's drive-by shooting, they were shocked at the level of police activity. Neighbors said they heard gunshots around 2 p.m. Officials stayed on the scene until at least 10 o'clock last night. Following the arrest of those 2 suspects, Spokane police want the community to know there are no other active suspects and the neighborhood shouldn't worry. A violent weekend also over in Tacoma. 13 people shot in a 24-hour period. 1 man was killed and 4 others injured in the backyard of a home. That suspect is now in custody. And late Saturday night, 8 people were shot at a rave. Those victims are all between 17 and 22 years old. They are all expected to survive. A 13-year-old boy drowned in Lake Stevens over the weekend, and 2 other kids had to be rescued from that same water. They were all at Davies Beach, which is not staffed with lifeguards. Those kids were found unresponsive in the water. Bystanders were able to pull a 12- and 15-year-old from the water and started CPR. They were taken to the hospital and are now in critical condition. The 13-year-old's body was recovered by divers from a swimming area about 10 feet deep. That was your Night Beat. If you'd like to learn more about any of those stories, remember you can text the word NIGHT to 509-448-2000 and we'll send them right to your phone. In national news tonight, protesters returned to the U.S. Supreme Court for a 4th straight day after the conservative majority sent the issue of abortion back to the individual states.
The thing that's going to keep me up at night is the women who will lose their lives because they don't have access to care.
More than a dozen states have trigger laws that are now in place to restrict or ban abortions since Roe v. Wade has officially been overturned. And that includes Idaho, with several more states also expected to fall in the coming weeks. Mississippi is the state at the heart of the case that led to the Supreme Court's ruling that struck down Roe, certified its trigger law today, banning nearly all abortions in 10 days. In Louisiana, a civil district court judge, though, has already temporarily blocked that state's trigger law from taking effect after providers sued. In the meantime, Democratic states are starting and preparing for a possible influx of women from states that have those restrictions. 13 states, in fact, are now working to increase protections on abortion care. Governor Jay Inslee laid out a plan this weekend to make Washington a safe state. He says he will push for an amendment to the state's constitution guaranteeing abortion as a right in Washington. He'll also be signing an order to Washington State Patrol to not cooperate with law enforcement from other states if they attempt to prosecute those seeking an abortion here. Inslee also pledged $1 million in an investment to enhance the state's healthcare resources. He says that is to prepare for an influx of those seeking an abortion here from other states. That was KREM 2 News 10 at 10, where you get more news in less time. But don't go anywhere. Coming up right after the break, we're diving into the backgrounds of those 2 suspects arrested after police say they shot an officer in the head here in Spokane over the weekend. We're back in just 90 seconds.